مرحبا بكم. اليوم نتلقاو في فورما جديد سميته TNT Tunisians in Tech، وين كل مرة باش نجيبو شاب تونسي عمل حاجة في التك اندستري ولا he has extensive experience في التك companies، نستدعاوه نسمعوا الانسايتس متاعو personal experience professional aspirations ونسألوه باش نتعلموا منه. اليوم نرحبوا بأحمد أحرس who is the first ever Revolut intern في ال company's history. أحمد تاو يخدم as a senior machine learning engineer at XYZ. وأحمد مرحبا بيك، كان تنجم تقدم لنا روحك.
Aslema, enchanté, avec plaisir. Je vais plus en anglais because I'm more comfortable speaking English. Mais oui, donc I grew up in Tunis. I was playing tennis when I was younger, and I studied computer science. I studied in the Netherlands, then moved to Lausanne, EPFL, in masters, and then since 5 years now, I've been working in tech in London.
Amazing. أنا دخلت تركيتك شوية على لينكدين وشفت اللي أنت you were a professional tennis player في تونس، وحبيت نعرف يعني since you had that career path بتاع professional tennis player you were really good at it، شنية that sparked الانترست بتاعك في التك و more specifically في الفيديو جيم development والجو ذاك.
Yeah, sure. Donc, en fait, what happened was I played tennis at the high level up until I was 12 years old. And then one of the things that I started doing more and more was play video games. Donc, I used to play a lot Counter-Strike, 1.6, which was big in Tunis, and Call of Duty, Modern Warfare 2, and Black Ops. And a lot of my friendships, even until today, are from those games. A lot of my most beautiful memories come from those games, actually. Et donc, what happened was that when I realized, that stuff made me happy, I kind of decided I wanted to start building those experiences for others. I wanted to do for others what video game designers did for me. Et donc, I told myself I was going to study anything related to video game development. Et donc, that's what sparked my interest in tech in the first place, was to build like immersive experiences in this context, like video games. And so I went to study computer science because I literally just wanted to build video games. And that's what I did, for a few years. Like I was on the side studying computer science, and on the side I was building gaming experiences on mobile.
Amazing. Super interesting. At 17 you moved to Netherlands تقرأ computer science في une ville اسمها Eindhoven في منشات. وحبيت نسألك what were the main challenges اللي you faced وقت اللي you moved to a new city at such a young age، بديت تقرأ في computer science full time on it seriously، شنية اللي difficulty اللي انت عرضوك في الطريق؟
Yeah, so two things. One is, so I moved when I hadn't turned 17 yet. I was still 16. So which meant for a year and a half, I couldn't really go out much. But I think the most challenging thing was the fact that I moved there without knowing anyone. Most of my friends moved to Lausanne, Paris, London, where they all had like some friends, right? But I moved to Eindhoven and I literally had nobody. I had some family in Amsterdam, I never met them, and up until today, I never met them. So, I was literally alone. And so I think the fact that I was still very, very young, 16, you're still kind of like a kid in a way. And the fact that I was very low, I was just alone, right? It means that I had to recreate my whole social life from scratch. I had just learned English, so it wasn't like I wasn't very, very fluent in English as well. So I think that combination was the single hardest thing that I had to go through. I think that's number one. And number two is just school was just another dimension from high school. Like you were suddenly like doing more projects. I was doing more very different things. And actually when I started, my grades didn't start as being very good. I started like in a bad way, and I was in a way I thought I wasn't meant to do this for the first 2 or 3 months. But then you keep pushing until things work out. But yeah, I think the loneliness and the fact that it was just very different from what I was doing in Tunis in high school, where that combination of both was just like it made it harder for me than like the average person who moved out of Tunis from to another city.
Totally understandable حقيقة. I had the exact same feeling the first 3 months of uni. This is not for me. وشو مبطل ودري شنو. كملت قرايتك تاع كمبيوتر ساينس، مشيت باش تعمل ماستر في لو بي اف ال في لوزان في سويسرا في الماشين ليرنينغ وفي الكمبيوتر فيجن. دونك انت شنو تحكي لي اكثر على الاكسبيرينس هذيك؟
Oh yeah, sure. Donc, bon, I didn't spend much time for the EPFL. I spent 1 year because I ended up dropping out. I never stayed at EPFL. But EPFL was it was very interesting. Honestly, like there were a lot. I had a lot of my friends that were at EPFL. Most of them were still in bachelors. Some were in masters. But I think like something I really liked about the EPFL was the caliber of your professors. Like, you are taught a programming language by the guy who built the programming language. The guy who taught me computer vision, Pascal Fura, is very, very famous in the computer vision space. You're taught by very, very high caliber people. The other thing that I liked, which is specific to masters and not to bachelors, we had a lot of projects. And so it was, a lot of classes were very project driven rather than like exams driven. Donc, I know that the EPFL bachelor's is a lot about exams, which, I'm not a big fan of personally. Mais the master's was very project driven. Donc, I really like that, honestly. I did find the city a little a little boring for me. I couldn't do much in the city apart from studying. It was a hard year in a sense that I studied a lot, but I think it made me like a lot of what I learned at EPFL was very, very fruitful for my career later because of, some classes were very, very useful, like applied data analysis, for example, was exactly what I did when I moved to Revolut. The overall positive experience. I think I'm happy I didn't stay longer. Spending that year there made me a much better like engineer, software engineer, and data scientist. Throughout my career afterwards.
Amazing. Speaking of Revolut, on a mentionné في l'intro, you're the first ever intern in the history of the company, Revolut.
Yeah.
حابك تحكي لي على الاكسبيرينس overall, your role, the key achievements اللي عملتهم انت during the internship وكيفاش من بعد that internship led to a full-time position at Revolut.
Yeah, sure. So this was in May 2019. And donc originally I had an offer for like 6 months, 6-month internship. And I was joining a new team called it's the computer vision team, which essentially, when you open a Revolut account, you take a picture of your passport and a selfie. And at the time, Revolut was using a third-party provider to do that called Onfido. The problem is that it was costing too much money. I don't think I have the right to disclose the numbers, but it was just costing too much money on a daily basis with the scale of Revolut. And donc they hired this team to automate and build the solution in-house. Donc suddenly it went from like using a third party to something in-house. And donc I joined that team, and it had started like 3 months before. So I joined really at the best time because I was in a small startup, but within a big startup, right? And I joined as like the third team member, right? And the 2 others joined a week before me, literally a week before me. And there was a product manager that joined like 2 months before. And donc my role was technically a data scientist intern, but I was doing a lot of machine learning / computer vision, which was kind of like honestly at the time it was a dream role for me. Revolut was really peaking, it was taking off, and I joined really at the perfect time. I had quite a lot of achievements there, like a lot of really good projects that went in production. But there's one that kind of made the difference, which led to the full-time offer, was a project that we called Revolut. So essentially, if today someone takes someone else's phone and tries to open their Revolut account, for example, if you suddenly take my phone and you try to open your Revolut account, it's going to ask you to take a selfie. You're going to be asked to put your mail, your PIN code, and a selfie. And that selfie will be compared to the selfie you took when you opened the account. And essentially, if it sees that the faces match, so face matching works. If you are the same person, it will open the account. If you're not the same person, so for example, if I take a selfie for your account, we don't look the same. It's not gonna open. And actually, I built the whole thing, the first ever version of that. I built the whole thing when I was still an intern. So they literally came to me and they said, you have like a month or 3 weeks to put this in production. And the problem is I had no idea what putting stuff in production even meant at the time. Like I had no idea. And I didn't learn that at school. And so I had to like build the whole system from scratch. Essentially, I took an open source model and I built the face matching, the face recognition result, which that didn't take long. What took long, what was hard, was putting that in the app, right? So you have a team of front-end engineers that build like the design, and I had to build that, assuming I get a picture and I have the person, I know the name of the person, how can I like see if it's the same person or not? And look, I built that whole thing literally by myself. Like my team was doing other things, so I had to put all of that in production. And I shipped it in about like a month or so, and it was used by about 1,500 users every day for a few months before someone else took over. So it was like, I don't know, my system was used maybe by like, let's say 200,000 people, 300,000 people. But what was more interesting is I saw in real time fraudsters trying to get into someone else's account. Like I still remember sitting in the office at Revolut at like 10 p.m., getting photos and checking the person, checking the photo and seeing it's not the same person, and seeing the money that the person had in their account. So I could see they had like, I don't know, like 1,000 pounds. And so you could assume that if the fraudster had come in, they would have stole that 1,000, right? Donc, that was a really, really fun project. And building that from scratch. Now there's a whole team doing that literally at Revolut. That was really, really exciting. And donc that led to December 2019, when I was 4 months into the internship. They told me, hey, look, we want to keep you. Here's a full-time offer. If you want to go back to school and, come back to Revolut a year after, you can. And I said, you know what, like, my goal is to become an entrepreneur. I like being an entrepreneur. I don't want to do research. School was fun. Being at Revolut at that time was just so much more interesting. What I learned at Revolut in 3 months, I hadn't learned it in school in 4 years. Donc, I was like, you know what, I'm just going to drop out and stay. And the decision was mainly driven by purpose. Like, my purpose is not like doing a PhD or doing research. It was mainly driven by like being in a startup. I want to found something one day. And donc, my question was, between these two options, what gets me closer to my goal? What makes me like a better version of an entrepreneur? And the answer was just very, very clear. Like I didn't even think about it. Like people think I thought about it too much, but honestly, as soon as I got the offer, I made my decision like on the spot.
Listen to your purpose at the end. That's all.
Yeah.
It's funny how Revolut, they exploit their interns this much. In 1 month, build the whole thing and ship it quickly.
Yeah, but they never had an intern before, so they don't know. They treated me as a full-time employee, which is what I liked the most about it.
Yeah, it's very interesting to see the side of the intern of the company, how you did all that in 1 month. And the integration to our product must have been so hard too.
Yeah.
Look, you already answered my next question, which was the most impactful projects اللي عملتهم في Revolut and the key takeaways from their experience. That we can move on. Tawa, you mentioned your purpose to become an entrepreneur one day, or to found your own business or your own project. نحبك تحكي لي أكثر على the founding engineer at Heron Data and the key responsibilities that you handle there. وكان تجم تفسر لنا أكثر شنو هي Heron Data, what does it mean to be a founding engineer, what does it entail in terms of responsibilities?
Yeah, sure. So essentially, after I left Revolut became after 2 years, it became a bit more corporate. So, I was young, I had a lot of energy, I needed the startup experience. I missed the startup experience. Look, I joined the startup called Heron Data, which was founded by a guy that I knew from Revolut. And the reason why I joined Heron wasn't because the product was very, very interesting, but because the CTO was my friend, and he was someone that inspired me when I was at Revolut. He was the head of data science for a few months. And donc I was like, I want to join him, just because I want to spend the next year or two learning to start a company from him. And donc I joined Heron in 2021. And essentially what Heron does, so it's a company that went through Y Combinator, which is a very famous accelerator of startups. Stripe, Airbnb, Instacart, a lot of them did YC. And donc, en fait, what they do is they automate business lending. So assume you have a restaurant and you're going to ask for a loan. Donc, you're going to go to a bank and ask for a loan. The bank, before giving you the loan, is going to study the business. Like, it's going to see how much money you make as a restaurant, etc. So what Heron does it was working with the banks. So not with the business, but with the banks. We got the transaction data from the bank about the business. Donc, I know the business, where they're spending their money, how much money they're making, etc. And donc, we had machine learning models that can classify transactions into categories. And we were able to tell you in like 5 minutes how the business is doing. Like, is it like growing? By how much money is it spending? Like, where is it spending its money? How, like, the financial health of a business. Banks used our systems to, make decisions on the loan. Like, if they see that we as Heron told them that the business is doing well, they're like, okay, you know what? We're going to give a loan to this business. Wow. So essentially that's what Heron does. And, I wouldn't say it's very sexy or very exciting, but honestly, like there is a market and it's pretty big problem.
It's a crazy automation لو الحقيقة.
Yeah.
You cut the work نتاع البنك اللي تعملوا في جمعتين
Yeah.
ولا قديش in 5 minutes, which is crazy for the bank.
Yeah,
It might
yeah,
used to be
yeah.
super reliable.
Yeah,
Otherwise,
so
it's not
yeah,
fun
that's
for the
like
bank.
that's like the biggest challenge we hit. And I mean, the company is still doing very well. Donc, I joined as employee number 2. So I joined. There were the 3 founders, 1 person, and me. Literally, we were 5 people, and the monthly recurrent revenue, which is the monthly revenue of the company, was $10,000. And when you join as a founding engineer, you're essentially like, you're pretty much a founder, but like you have to do kind of everything. So I started as like building the machine learning model, which takes a transaction and can classify it into a category. But then I moved towards like front end, where I had to build a dashboard, and then I had to do sales because I figured out that I was good with customers. So they sent me to New York to meet customers and close deals. And so to answer your question, like what do you do as a founding engineer? It depends on the company, but for me, it was a very fruitful experience because I was just doing everything. Like the CEO sometime went off and he would give me like the company to run. Sometimes the founders were off and I would just like talk to the customers, build. I do pretty much everything, like from product, sales, marketing, engineering, everything. And yeah, I spent 2 years there roughly. And it was honestly great. Like we took the company from 10,000 monthly revenue to 150. Like I saw the company 15x in terms of revenue. We hired about 10 people, and today it's still doing well. I'm still very good in very good contact with them, but I had to move on in a way, like I had to move forward in my life.
Crazy. Like how la vie c'est des cycles.
Yeah.
Moving on. عملت حاجة اسمها entrepreneur first.
Yep.
قبل كل شيء خلينا نفسروا شنو هي entrepreneur first وانت c'était quoi l'objectif نتاعك كي دخلت entrepreneur first و c'est quoi les leçons اللي تعلمتهم من entrepreneur first.
Yeah, donc en fait, I left Heron. It was May 2023, donc last year, and I wanted to start a company. I had been working for 4 years. I was like, you know what, I'm going to start a company. I left with nothing on the side. Donc, I had to kind of rely just on myself. And I spent 2-3 months roughly trying to find a co-founder and trying to find an idea that I was really passionate about. So it's not a matter of like finding an idea. It's about finding an idea that really makes sense for you. And that's what you want to do for the next 5 years. But I couldn't find anyone to do this with, nor find the right idea. Donc, I asked myself, like, I want to be in an environment full of people that are in the same position as me. That's what I wanted. And Entrepreneur First is what it was the answer to that. Donc EF is a program that is in London, in Paris, and some other places in the world, where essentially you get picked. And I mean, you have to like meet the team and interview, but like essentially they pick up the person and they pay you to literally spend 3 months in a WeWork in a group of like 40 people, en général 40, 50 people, and you just like meet people and like try to start a company together. Donc, it's un peu co-founder dating in a way, tu vois. It is a bit weird because they put you like 40 people in like one room and they tell you to start companies together. Donc, it's a bit weird. I'm not gonna lie, but it's fun. Genre, if you are in a position where you don't have a co-founder, you want to start a company, you have time, you're not in a rush, I would recommend EF. You don't lose anything. Like they don't pay you much, but they pay you just a little bit. But like it's enough to cover for your living costs in London. The worst case, which is like what happened to me in a way, I don't find a co-founder. Like my network exploded. Like now suddenly I know 30 people that have started companies. Most of them moved to San Francisco. And donc suddenly if tomorrow I go to SF for some reason, I have people that I can work with straight away. I don't even have to think because I know them very well. But I think like there's two things that I learned a lot from EF. Like obviously like it was an experience and that I would recommend. But there's two things that I learned a lot. The first one is, people say that you really have to love what you're doing when you start a company. Like it has to be something that keeps you up at night, tu vois? And, I made a mistake when I was at EF is that I met a potential co-founder, and we weren't passionate both about the same thing. But we're trying to find the common ground. And the common ground was like working with small businesses, influencer marketing, etc. And I spent 3 weeks trying to validate an idea in that. But the reality is, at the end of the day, I don't care about influencer marketing. I don't care about all of this. I can only start a company about something that I'm passionate about. if you ask me today, it's ARVR, augmented reality, virtual reality, which has been the thing I wanted to do for the past, since I was in Eindhoven, this is the thing that I wanted to do. But I don't think, and I don't believe in myself starting a company someday about something that doesn't keep me up at night. And you need to be really, really passionate about what you do. And I think the second thing is, it is very hard to find a co-founder. Co-founder relationship will be even more important than being in a marriage. It is like a marriage, you spend like 10 hours a day with that person. It needs to be someone that you fully trust. EF didn't work for me because starting a company with a complete stranger wasn't viable for me. But if you're picking a co-founder or you're picking a business partner, pick someone that you truly, truly trust and that because it's like you're going to have a baby together. And if you have a baby together, you need to know the person very well. Look, those are the two things that I kept from EF.
Okay, super interesting EF experience, honestly. I think this is the first time I meet someone اللي مشى EF وما عملش company, but you're totally right. The network اللي عملته specifically توا في San Francisco, it's such an asset في حياتك. It's amazing. بعد ما كملت EF, you mentioned your interest for ARVR.
Yeah.
ومشيت الكومباني اسمها XYZ Reality.
Yeah.
وليت فيها senior machine learning engineer. And this is your first role as an officially senior position في tech company. And حابك تحكي لي what excited you the most about this position, about the company. إيش هي responsibilities نتاعك جدد as a senior software engineer ولا machine learning engineer?
Sure. Donc, picking XYZ was the result of two things. One was my manager is a friend from Revolut. It's someone I worked with at Revolut that I know very, very well. And, it's someone I always wanted to work with again. I'm inspired by the guy. I really like him. Donc, he was going to be my manager. He actually hired me. Donc, that was probably the number one thing. It's the people. And in this case, it's my manager because I really like him. And he's very, very good at what he does. And the second thing was the space. So being an AR, it's I want to work in this. It's the first time that I get to work in a company that builds AR headsets or works in augmented reality. Donc, it's the combination of people and space. So if I want to start a company in AR/VR one day, this is the perfect step towards that because I get to see the problems in augmented reality. I get to see what it's like to work in augmented reality and stuff. In terms of responsibility, so I am the first ML hire, the first person to do machine learning. My manager is the head of machine learning, but honestly, he's doing a lot of the strategy work, etc. We get to work a little bit together, but as an engineer, I'm the first person to do this. And there isn't a lot of AI nor ML. When I speak AI and ML, there's you could say they're the same thing. There isn't much here. There's a lot of work into setting up the foundations about what AI means, what the value it's going to bring to the company. I play a big role in that, which is being close to the leadership, how we can use AI to accelerate the product. How can we use AI to bring value? People talk a lot about LLMs and ChatGPT kind of thing, but how can you use that to speed up, people in the company? How can you use that to bring value to the company? And a lot of my responsibility, obviously, is also on the engineering side. I, built ML models. So, for example, something that in the company we were doing manually, which takes 2 or 3 weeks, suddenly I can use data to build a model which does that suddenly it enables people to do it in 2 or 3 days rather than 2 or 3 weeks, right? So if we have something where people are manually setting a construction task, such as install these stairs into a category, we do that manually.
نعم يقص عليك, we did not mention XYZ شنو البرودكت خاطر انا نعرفه من قبل.
assume
that people know the product, but what does XYZ do? باش عبيد تفهم شنو انت قاعد تحكي تو في machine learning.
Yeah, so essentially XYZ brings augmented reality to construction. One of the problems with construction right now is that everything is drawn in 2D, in a paper, and then people go and install stuff in 3D. But this leads to a lot of mistakes, on site. And if someone makes a mistake in construction, some mistake can cost hundreds of thousands because you make one mistake and then you later figure it out that it was a mistake and then you have to reinstall everything. Right. So what we do, we sell a augmented reality headset that we built in-house. which has a hologram, literally the hologram of the construction. Donc, you can see something installed in the headset, and then you can install on top of it. And the way we get that hologram is from the 3D model, which before was sitting on a computer, but now it sits like really in front of you in terms of hologram, right? And donc, you sell the headset, but you also sell a software platform which has all the data. Donc, par example, I'll just give an example, a very concrete one is, we have let's say you need to install a column. So someone goes, installs that column, and with the AR headset, someone working at the company has the AR headset, they can look at it, they see the column, they see the hologram. And when they see that the hologram and the column, the real column, are together, they match, they click on it and they match, they say installed, it has been installed. And suddenly, someone looking at the project can know how many elements have been installed, they can track the progress, they can see how it's doing. One of the problems that we have as a company, for example, right now, is all elements are weighing the same. Donc, par example, if you install a small screw or small bolt, or you install a big wall, if they're both two different elements in the data, they're the same. They count both as one. But if you think about it, a big wall, is not the same as a small bolt, right? It's not. So you need to weigh elements intelligently. In a smart way, you need to say how many each element should weigh, so that someone looking at the progress of the project can be oh, we are 20% in the project, we are 30%, we're nearly done, we're 80%, but it needs to make sense, right? So if you install a wall, it should be maybe 10 times more than a bolt, right? And look, one of my current projects is what's the weight of an element? How do you define that? Because I'm the first hire that I was saying earlier, nobody has done this work for me. I can't ask anyone. There's nothing online, and nobody has solved this problem. Donc, I literally have to define what's the weight of an element. It needs to make sense. I need to communicate that. I need to get the answer and go figure it out in the data, despite the fact that there's absolutely nothing online. There is no answer to this online. I have to literally figure it out.
Brute force way, intuitively, صدري يفكر, you categorize all the elements in clusters واحدة واحدة, and you say 20% of the bolts have been installed, 20% of the walls have been installed. Why do you create a ratio between all of them, and you give an average of the
I wish it was that simple. I will not go into the details, but I wish it was that simple. But yeah,
intuitive way to solve the brute force problem.
Yeah.
But it's super interesting to see an AR/VR company today and how it is implementing itself in so many sectors. And I believe AR/VR, BCI, يعني brain computer interfaces, machine learning, these three is going to be the thing for the next 25 years at least. At least is the basis for everything in all sectors. But speaking of the future, how do you see the future with that AR/VR technology, with its impact in all industries, or particularly your industry, the building infrastructure?
Okay, yeah. Well, disclaimer, I'm a big enthusiast about AR/VR. I have been a big fan for years. I've been thinking about this stuff for 9 years now. It's not I saw the Vision Pro and suddenly I got interested. But essentially, the way I see it is that VR is mainly gaming. I have a VR headset at home. I own the Quest 3. I play with it at least 3-4 times a week. It's very good if you want to either game or do anything where you need to be completely immersed. For example, meditation or workouts or, boxing or gaming. I see the future of gaming being in VR. I see the future of certain of these experiences where it needs to be very, very immersive into VR. I think where AR and mixed reality is going to come in is more on the day-to-day basis. Look, for example, in construction, it makes so much sense. Honestly, I tried our product on site. It's not perfect, but honestly, it makes so much sense. For example, whenever you need to visualize certain things, I don't know, let's say education, right? Who hasn't dreamed of whenever you're studying chemical engineering, you could see the thing in front of you. Or when you're studying physics, you could actually see the physics, the real physics happening in front of you, to visualize it rather than drawing it on a piece of paper. That's where I see a lot of mixed reality and AR coming in. But I think something that we're missing today, which is one of the things that I believe there's a lot of value in it, is how do you make sure that people experience these together. So one of the big problems with like immersive experiences right now, it's very lonely. Like when I have my VR headset at home, like, nobody can talk to me. I'm in my own world, right? And everybody's in their own world. But, people are social and we want to share things together. Donc, I think a big challenge that is happening right now is how do you make sure that people can experience things together? So, for example, if you're in a classroom, you have a headset. How can you make sure that what you're seeing, you're not the only one seeing it, but like everybody's seeing the thing at the same time? It's synchronized, maybe looking at the exact same thing rather than each person looking at it differently. I think fostering social VR, like the social component of immersive experience, is a big challenge, right? But yeah, that's one of the things that I'm most excited about. I do believe that AR and VR are gonna disrupt most, if not all, of the industry in one way or another, because we could all use more immersion. People are wired in 3D. We see in 3D. We don't see in 2D. Dogs see in 2D. We see in 3D. It's a shame that a lot of the things that we do, on a computer are 2D. So, I think it just goes back to the nature of the brain to do things in 3D.
That's a very interesting point of view, الحقيقة. How we do see things in 3D, أما our world اللي نخدموا عليه الكل, it's in 2D. And how
Yeah.
do we not scale up to the 3D in so long?
Yeah.
And there's also the POV متاع, it's same as video games. قبل video games were only like a solo player thing. أما كي ولاو multiplayer, it was a boom to the industry. And I think it's going to be the same thing for VR, like you mentioned.
Of course.
Okay. Now we come to the interesting part للعباد اللي كيفي students ويحبوا يمشوا في big tech company ويحبوا they break into the tech industry وكل. What would be your best advice, your insights for aspiring tech professionals like me?
Sure. I think there's two things. One is, again, this is like from my personal experience. People might have different opinions on this, but I think what worked for me are two things. One is to build projects on the side. And what I mean by project is not just like, not try to build like the next OpenAI. It's better to build a small project and put it out, make it usable and really well done, rather than try to build the next OpenAI but never really getting it out. Like, I think there's a lot of value in like picking something that you believe in or like a problem that you faced, right? And then building even a small solution to do that, and then put it out there like on GitHub, or like make a website ideally if you can, or get users, do that, and that will like just help you so much in your career. Because especially as you're getting started, one of the things that like companies are going to ask you is not your grades. Like nobody cares about your grades. Like honestly, nobody cares. And unless you went to MIT or Stanford, nobody really cares about which school you went to. What people care about is what you've done. And I meet a lot of these students that are trying to build big projects. Oh, I want to build the next GTA. I want to build the next OpenAI. But like, people talk and they never really ship anything because it's just very hard, right? Don't build small things, build them well, get users and iterate rather than like try to go for the big vision. I think that's like number one. And number two is to optimize a lot on your network. Donc, fun fact is, all my jobs that I got, except one. So I think I got 3 or 4 jobs so far. All of them came through my network. Like literally this one, it happened. I barely like interviewed and stuff, just because I met the head of machine learning is a very good friend and he sold me, right? And so it happened like, all of them, I got referrals. At Revolut, I got a referral. I had to go through the interview process, obviously, but like I went through a referral. That's why I got the internship offer, is because I was able to go through someone inside. And donc, en fait, the reason all of this happened is because I have been hardworking and I have been respectful to people. And even when I was leaving jobs, for example, I stayed respectful and I worked until the very last minute. So keeping your reputation good and, growing your network as much as possible, I think has been like probably in my career the single most important thing. Because without that, honestly, I don't know where I would be today. Like maybe better, maybe, but most likely worse, right? So I think just like build small projects and optimize on your network, and more than optimize on your network, keep a good reputation. Like you want people to like you. Having people that like you, even someone who you meet once, you don't know how much that person can help you later in your life. You don't want to be remembered as someone who doesn't work or someone who doesn't care, who's someone that people don't want to work with. You want to keep a good reputation.
Okay. Reputation, networking. Okay. My next question was, how important do you think having a personal portfolio is you just answered that by mentioning قديش لازم you need to create like effective but small
Yeah.
projects. Just make something cool or efficient. I think I
think
got
just
all I
on
needed
that.
in terms of advice.
Yeah, I think just on that, genre, it's better to build a website and show things well rather than just do GitHub, for example. Parce que, bon, genre, honestly, people care about design. That's why Apple is Apple, because, you know, the design of Apple. People care about design. People care about how it looks. A recruiter doesn't have more than 15 or 20 seconds to look at your application. Look, you want to maximize your chances, you build a sadridridi.com where you have your projects, because in those 20 seconds, he'll see a lot more than sharing a GitHub repo, and then they have to look at the code and the README, etc.
Exactly. اوكي انا حقيقه داك الشيء عملت انفستيت وقتي الكل وقتي الكل في الويب سايت نتاعي I'm happy how it looks like. باهي now باش نسكروا البودكاست نتاعنا ب what will be your long term careers and where do you see yourself in the next 5 years the ARVR ولا personally professionally whatever aspect you want to tackle this question.
Yeah, I mean, I think I spent 4 years not working in ARVR, and I think it's time for me to just do that now. Unless something changes in life and, you know, you have to be open. This is the only thing that I want to do. If you ask me now what I want in 5 years, now it might change. But if you ask me, like, you know, I love where I am today because I'm learning, etc. But, like, you know, in a few years, I do want to start my company in this space. Donc, one of the things that I try to do today is, like, really identify problems in the AR space. Look, I'd say, like, either be in London or most likely I'll be, hopefully, maybe, who knows, maybe I'll move to California if things, you know, who knows if that happens. And then start a company in this space, in ARVR. I don't know in what exactly. You know, I believe a lot in the vision of this technology. I can't say if it's going to be in gaming, in education, construction, or anything. I just really want to just incorporate this technology of immersive experience to create real value. And that's the path that I'm taking. And I told myself that for the next 5 to 10 years, this is the only thing that I'm going to do and nothing else. I'm not going to let any other distraction come in my way.
Okay. That's very, very inspiring, and it's very exciting for the future, specifically from someone who was in SF, San Francisco, and I see the amount of startups اللي قاعدين يخرجوا في AR and VR. It's just amazing, bro. Specifically كي تعمل الديمو وتشوف العبيد فاش قاعدة تخدم. C'est extraordinaire. Honestly, I'm super grateful to be born in this era and to be able, inshallah, to witness all the new technologies that will come. Wow, it's just amazing. It will be even better if I can contribute to these technologies. Just as an observer, it's already amazing. So, Khalid as a creator.
Yeah.
Okay. Je pense que là, on a fini. Est-ce que كان عندك انت اي حاجة you want to add لأي عبد that want to start a tech career ولا أي highlight that you didn't have the time to mention ولا أنا I did not tackle through my questions? You have the floor.
Yeah, no, I think just one thing, Jean, if you're starting your career, I'd say, like, follow the people. You know, don't follow only cool ideas. Like, follow the right people. Like, you know, we all want to work in cool stuff, but especially when you're starting your career, it's more important to work with a good manager at the beginning. It's better to work with a good manager in something you're not very interested in, as in, like, the space, like, you know, not something that you're very, very passionate about, rather than work with a bad manager in a space you're very passionate about. If you can get good manager in something you're very passionate about, sure, but if you had to pick one, at least at the beginning, pick the people, because those will have outsized returns in your future because of the network and of the learning, right? Donc, yeah, that's what I would say. I think follow the right people, the people who inspire you, and these will have outsized return in your future. Yeah.
Okay. C'est une très belle note. باش نكملوا بها الحقيقة. Follow the people. Merci beaucoup, Ahmed, for your time. I know you have a hectic calendar. You have a lot of work, and thank you so much for taking the time to do this.
My pleasure.
يعطيك الصحة. And we'll keep in touch, inshallah. And we have a good. I need to take care of my network, حتىنا.
Ça marche, avec plaisir.
And merci beaucoup.
Thank you so much. Salut, bye bye.